Daniel Sports Central will be over a college football bowl preview and prediction on the 2021 Duke's Mayo Bowl matchup between the North Carolina Tar Heels and the South Carolina Gamecocks. Both teams have had good seasons to this point. Should make for a good matchup here in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. North Carolina lost to NC State 30-34 in the last game of the regular season. NC State was ranked number 20 in the nation at the time, and North Carolina finishes out the regular season at 6-6. I think everyone can say here it's been a bit of a disappointing season here for the Tar Heels. There's a lot of hype coming into this 2021 season, mainly because of Sam Howell, an outstanding quarterback, and also all that was being returned around him. Defensively, this team had a lot coming back, and same thing on the offensive side of the ball as well. So, been kind of a disappointing season for North Carolina, to say the least. But this is a good opportunity to finish out the season with a quality win over an SEC opponent in South Carolina. Gamecocks lost to Clemson 30-0. So, coming off of a tough loss, to say the least, coming into this matchup here. But otherwise, South Carolina, they've played pretty well down the stretch. Beat Florida back in early November, also beat Auburn back on November 20th. So they've won 2 of their last 4. They lost to Missouri in a close one as well, but that Clemson game certainly was not a very good performance. But otherwise, both teams are 6-6 heading into this matchup. It'll be on Thursday, December 30th, Charlotte, North Carolina, and your kickoff time is 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Spreads go with North Carolina here by 9. So the Tar Heels are actually significantly favored in this matchup, which isn't too surprising once you look into the details on the reality of this South Carolina football team. But North Carolina is pretty heavily favored in this matchup. FBI is also going with them nearly 70%. Over-under is 58.5. So your over-under is predicting a moderate to a higher scoring game here. Series history, North Carolina leads at 35-19. As we've seen a lot of matchups here in the history of these two programs. Win streak, North Carolina by 1. Last game was back in 2019. Here's your stat comparison for this game. North Carolina, 36 points per game, 31 points allowed, 259 passers a game, 219 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, he got 237 passing and then 174 rushing. And as for South Carolina, 21 points per game, 24 points allowed, 197 passers a game, 122 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, he got 178 passing, 178 for rushing. So kind of one of those rare stats there where pass yards and rush yards allowed are actually the same number there for South Carolina. But two very different football teams here. You got South Carolina, who's mainly a defensive team. That's kind of what's been winning games for them, is their defense. Their offense is okay, but their defense is really what's been good on this football team. Even their defense isn't incredibly good. It's just, their offense just can't do too much. But for North Carolina, kind of the opposite. Their offense is a high-powered offense, and they play very well on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, though, they allow quite a few points. But something about South Carolina that's definitely to note here is, if you look at this football team, one of the sole reasons why this team is even in a bowl game in the first place is because of their quarterback, Jason Brown. Jason Brown actually led this team to some good, he gave this team some good momentum in the month of November, especially, and at the later part of October when they played. Well, that Texas A&M game wasn't very good, but if you look at November, they beat Florida with Jason Brown. They had a close loss to Missouri by 3, and they beat Auburn as well. So, this team picked up 2 solid wins there against Florida and Auburn when Brown was their quarterback. And turns out he transferred away a couple of weeks ago, which is for whatever reason. And now, the problem is here is, Jason Brown brought this team some good momentum. Zeb Noland is now the starting quarterback for this football team. He started against Clemson, and this team lost 30-0. They got shut out to the Tigers in that matchup. Zeb Noland will be starting for this game, it looks like. And so, he's going to have a huge impact on how this football team does. If Zeb Noland plays well, Gamecocks have a chance. But, the way that South Carolina played against Clemson with Zeb Noland did not look good. So, we'll see how that turns out. That's going to be a major factor in this match here. But for North Carolina, quarterback situation is excellent. Sam Howell is a great football player. And, it's been tough seeing Sam Howell. He's a quarterback that could easily lead a football team to a college football playoff appearance. And, there were some analysts expecting North Carolina to be in the college football playoff in this 2021 season. So, been kind of a disappointing season once again for North Carolina. But, when it comes down to it, this is still an important game for this football team. Some recent matchups, North Carolina lost to NC State there, beat Wofford 34-14, lost to Pitt 23-30. Pitt turned out to be the big surprise team of the ACC this season. Kenny Pickett has had a great year, that's for sure. Beat Wake Forest 58-55, lost to Notre Dame by 10 as well. So, this team has played some good football teams down the stretch. They did beat Wake Forest, but they've lost to Pitt, NC State, and Notre Dame as far as ranked teams are concerned. And as for South Carolina, lost to Clemson, beat Auburn by 4, lost to Missouri by 3, beat Florida 40-17 once again. I mean, Jason Brown, when he was the quarterback, I mean, that Florida game was huge. That was an incredible win for South Carolina. They scored 40 points in that game. They lost to Texas A&M by 30, 14-44, so that wasn't a very good game there. But otherwise, I mean, this team has been very inconsistent as well. I mean, that's something that you'll notice is, I mean, this team can go from beating Auburn 21-17 to losing to Clemson 30-0. Here's some key points for this one. Both teams 6-6. North Carolina, Sam Howell is a key impact player. Offense has been the strength of this team once again. I mean, these teams are pretty much the opposite. You got a very high-powered offense against a very, well, I wouldn't say a high-powered defense, but I mean a good defense in South Carolina. I mean, and also, I mean, both teams are in some very interesting situations, very different situations as well. I mean, North Carolina has been a major letdown in this 2021 season. Meanwhile, South Carolina, I mean, they've surprised some people, getting up to 6 wins in the SEC. I mean, not many people expected South Carolina to get up to 6 wins, but here they are. So, kind of an interesting dynamic in this matchup. But, yeah, quality wins for North Carolina include Virginia, Miami, and Wake Forest. Miami game was a ranked win. Virginia got up to a bowl eligibility spot, and they've played somewhat decent. And Wake Forest, of course, number 9 team in the nation at the time, that North Carolina beat them. As for South Carolina, inconsistent team that has shown promise over the course of the season. They've had some, kind of been a roller coaster of a season. I mean, they've had some good games, but some very bad ones too. Brown is transferred away. Zeb Noland will start for this game. So once again, that's going to have a huge impact on how this game goes. And quality wins include Florida and Auburn. So once again, very interesting matchup here. There's a lot at play here, and it should make for a good one here in the Mayo Bowl. But that being said, let's get to the prediction here for North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm going to go Tar Heels here big. 35-17 is my predicted final score. I mean, I just feel like in this matchup, it's a tough one because you got South Carolina who, I mean, they've beaten Florida and Auburn over the course of the past month. But I'm telling you, I mean, it's just been kind of, I mean, having their quarterback transfer away. I mean, the way Zeb Noland and this team played against Clemson, they just came out flat. They couldn't even get a single point up on the board, and Clemson ran all over them. So, and Clemson isn't, I mean, they don't even have a very good offense, and they scored 30 on South Carolina. So, I mean, that is kind of concerning there for the Gamecocks. How are they going to come into this matchup? Will they be motivated, mentally ready to go? I think North Carolina will be. I mean, the Tar Heels definitely, I mean, they've kind of had a flat season in itself. But I think North Carolina is going to be ready to go. They get the win here 35-17. I mean, Tar Heels, they should win this game. I mean, that's the keyword here is they should, but doesn't mean that they will. But that being said, I do think I'm pretty confident that North Carolina wins this game. I'd say 60-65% chance that North Carolina wins this game here. And your over-under is 58.5. I'm going to take the under for this game by a decent amount. I mean, if South Carolina keeps it close, they'll probably go over because North Carolina, they're going to score at least 30 points in this game, if you ask me. They should score at least 30, and South Carolina having a tough time scoring. I mean, they're averaging 21 points a game, so I don't expect South Carolina to really get past 20. So for Gamecocks, got to keep it a close game, got to keep it a defensive, low-scoring game if you want any chance of winning. I mean, if North Carolina gets above 25 points, they've pretty much got the win, if you ask me. I can't imagine South Carolina getting above that amount of points, especially with their situation. But I'm going to go North Carolina 35-17 here. North Carolina to cover the 9-point spread as well. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you later.